We're going to begin our 2 o'clock discussion with a very short trailer, a 2-minute trailer of a powerful film about October 7th. And the film is called Red Dawn. Red Alert. My mistake. Red Alert. I've been corrected. Not the first time. Won't be the last. And I'm so proud of Jordana because this became a passion project of hers, because she wanted the community to know what happened on October 7th.
Sorry, carry on.
Yes. Yeah. Jordana also made a Sukkot brunch 2 years ago?
Yeah, last year.
Last year, and we called it the Ashkefardik brunch because half the food was Ashkenazic, bagels and lox, and half was hummus and tahina. Your heritage, Sephardic, yeah. Iraqi.
One half had a lot of leftovers and the other half got eaten.
I wonder who it was. Okay, now, Jordy, what made you get involved in this passion project, this film? Tell us.
Right, well, I'm definitely not in the movie business, but I most certainly am in the Israel business. And I quite quickly saw that, sadly, the reality wasn't getting through. If anyone wanted to see what happened, they could have turned on their phones on October 7 or 8. They can see on Telegram the horrors unfolding as they broadcasted it, proudly. And so I thought, we might have to Hollywood this. We might have to make this into a show to get people to watch this and then leave changing an opinion or at least understanding what happened on October 7. So we took 4 real stories from October 7 of unexpected, extraordinary heroes, and we made sure we got the right sort of cross-section so there's always someone you can identify with, a mother doing extraordinary things to save her son and a family for their children, a husband to get to his wife, an Arab Israeli who saved many lives. And so like that movie Crash, we sort of, in each part of this 4-part series, which runs as a very fast-paced action drama, and it wasn't easy to do this. We sort of felt that, it was too soon, and it was soon. It was January 24. I said, we just got to go. We've got to get this out there. We've got to get the kids to watch this. We've got to get the university kids to watch this, and we have to do it in a way that they'd want to watch it even if they didn't care about this conflict.
When is it going to premiere?
Okay, October 7 on Paramount Plus. It's called Red Alert. It's not an upper, but it's important. It's all true, and it was done with a lot of wonderful energy and love for our people.
And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you for doing
Thank
this.
you. Thank you.
Let's watch the trailer, Red Alert.
ראית שם פעם?
בעזה? כשהייתי ילד היו ניסים לשם הרבה.
ולא פחדת?
היום אני לא מפחד.
טיפול! סי! יודעת שאני חולה עליך.
אללהו אכבר!
شو هذا سلاح؟
זה בקיבוץ?
افتحوا الشباك.
לאן אתה הולך?
לראות אם צריך עזרה.
לך כפר, אלוהים ישמור אותך.
את נורמלית? לאן שלחת אותו?
חיים שלי, הרובי.
אני בא אלייך, לוחמים!
צועים אליי! בן שלי, ראית את הבן שלי?
אני אהיה פה מחוץ לדלת.
הם יחזרו.
אבו שאתה שם?
פליז, not the wallet.
לא יכול להיות שם לבד.
وحياتك خلص وحياتك. אני מחתנת את הבת שלי עוד שבועיים. את תחתני את הבעלי בדרך.
אנחנו קרובים חיים שלי.
with us.
You took already one child.
בואי נלך הביתה.
And I just want to add that Lawrence Bender was involved in producing this as well, an award-winning producer with Jordana. And it really is an amazing achievement. And like Jordana likes to remind me, Rabbi, we're winning. We're winning. We destroyed Hezbollah, Nasrallah. We destroyed so much of the Gaza Hamas infrastructure. And look what we accomplished attacking Iran's air defense system. We're in the winning mode. We should never forget that. Right now, we're going to ask that our staff sets up 5 chairs here, and 6 chairs, actually. And I'd like to call on the people who are going to be part of our panel. Brooke Goldstein, please come up. Leo Terrell. Luai Ahmed, please come up. Dr. Judea Pearl and co-moderator Fred Bernstein, please come up, and we're going to begin our conversation. Also, Roz Rothstein from Stand With Us, please come up. Right now, I'd like to call on my very dear friend, Fred Bernstein, who's going to join me in moderating this panel, because we want to hear from each of these people and give you an opportunity to ask questions as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Fred.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us to help beat the hunger pains together. So hopefully we have a nice program for you for the next several hours. And we're going to hear some inspiring words, I hope, people that are change makers, people that are creating a narrative around the Jewish people throughout multiple sections of society and in government, all to help, obviously, what's become a very, very stressful and tangible level of discomfort for our community throughout the country. So I think we should go down the row and everyone can do a little introduction and introduce yourselves to our congregation here, and we'll fire off some questions once we get through the intros.
I'm Roz Rothstein. Thank you for having me, Rabbi, and what beautiful, beautiful service, my goodness. 24 years ago, we started an organization, Stand With Us. We're working on college campuses, high schools, middle schools, and really around the world. You probably know us from our social media. I am the CEO of that organization.
Hello, my name is Leo Terrell. I had the privilege to introduce myself to you earlier today. Thank you very much, Pastor Rabbi Barron. First, I am the chair of the Department of Justice Task Force to combat anti-Semitism. It is a privilege and honor to work on that task force, but my ultimate goal is to put me out of business so we can make sure there is no need for a task force to combat anti-Semitism. Thank you.
I'm Judea Pearl, and today I celebrate 55 years since I joined UCLA. I am a professor of computer science, and I've been watching the emergence of anti-Semitism in our campus, and I would like to tell you later on a few things that normally the public is not aware of about the situation in academia.
Good afternoon. My name is Brooke Goldstein. I am the founder and executive director of the Lawfare Project, which is the world's foremost Jewish civil rights litigation fund and public interest law firm. We are behind most of the lawsuits that you've read about in the news against American colleges and universities. We are suing them for their anti-Jewish discrimination. I'm also the founder of the End Jew Hatred movement, which surprisingly is the first ever Jewish civil rights movement in American history. And I want to say how honored I am to share the stage with my fellow panelists today, and thank you for having me today.
Good afternoon. Does it work?
Yes.
My name is Andrei, and originally I'm from Russia. I moved to Israel 3 years ago, and on October 7, I was kidnapped to Gaza for 8 months. Was fortunately rescued on June 8, 2024, so it's almost 16 months ago. And I already done a lot of speaking a year ago, but I decided to kind of disappear in 2025, and I just decided to dedicate this time to what I love, and this is my art. And actually, I think that all my art that will be and already is dedicated to my Gaza experience, supposed to be not exactly for you as a Jewish people. My plan is to show this to non-Jewish people. So my plan is a little bit to turn their mindset and maybe to change somebody's opinion who is against Israel and Jews.
My name is Loay Ahmed, and it's okay if nobody can pronounce that name. I was born and raised in Sana'a, Yemen, and in Sana'a I practically learned to be anti-Semitic and hate the Jewish people and stand against Israel. I burned the Israeli flag in school, and I chanted in mosques, "Death to Israel," curse upon the Jews in my mosques and schools. When I was 20, I moved to Sweden and eventually got to meet Jews and Israelis and found out that they were not that evil. They turned out to be incredible people. And when October 7 happened, I saw my family and friends celebrate the genocide of the Jewish people. So I grabbed my camera and I started making videos and speaking out against anti-Semitism and hatred against Israel and the Jewish people, and transitioned slowly from being a journalist in Sweden into being a content creator who can't stop talking about peace in the Middle East. I want to thank you all for inviting me here for this incredible opportunity. And this is the first Yom Kippur that I get to observe and understand. So thank you for having me.
Leo's first Yom Kippur too.
Mazel tov.
Leo has had a very busy week and has jumped right into the deep end of Jewish traditions and Jewish leadership. Leo and I were at Shabbat dinner on Friday night with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his family, and we followed up the weekend with a fantastic program organized by the Jewish News Syndicate, all in New York. So we know he might be a little bit jet lagged as well, but he's had a crash course this week, and we thank you for everything you're doing for all of us. Andre, real quick before we get into questions, why don't you share, because I've heard you speak many times before, where were you on October 7th? So take us to October 6th. How long had you been in Israel? And what was the situation leading up to this, your capture?
I moved to Israel in 2022, in August. That means I spent in Israel before October 7 only 13 months. And I didn't speak Hebrew by that moment, so my task was to integrate to a new society, to learn Hebrew, to make some connections, to make some friends, to make money, of course. So I decided to be a security guard on Nova Festival, and we arrived there on October 5th. We spent there almost two days working, and then October 7 at 6:30. This story already is known.
Yeah, sure.
Say louder.
Louder? Okay.
Who'd like? Fred.
Lou, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
The root causes of anti-Semitism in the Islamic world. There's an ideology that's there, it's present, we all see it day to day. Where would you say, in your educational experience, does that stem from?
We don't have a lot of time. So it comes from every different structure. So religiously, we are taught fables. I learned that the Jews tried to kill Prophet Muhammad. So it's not just Jesus that the Jews tried to kill. And because of that, they are conniving and malicious, and there's always a negative energy behind the Jews. socially, we are taught that the Jews have too much power and too much money. And another thing that we learn is that Jews are ugly. Like, they look really, really ugly. That's also something that they socially teach you in Sana'a and Yemen. So they teach you from every single aspect that the Jewish people are to be dehumanized and demolished, which is why it ends up being so easy teaching children and people in societies like in Yemen and Afghanistan. You can get entire crowds of people to chant death to Israel or death to the IDF because you teach them since they're children that religiously we're supposed to hate them and socially we're supposed to hate them. So every single aspect in life tells us that the Jewish people are bad people. So, and it's sad for me as a Muslim to see that my religion that has built a civilization of people for 1,400 years manages today to let extremism and hatred dominate many of our mosques and our schools. And I think as Muslims, it's our obligation to change that.
Thank you for that. Brooke, can I jump to you for a second? Thank you.
Sure.
After the October 7th massacre, objectively the single worst day of violence against Jews since the Holocaust, as we're all well aware, in your day-to-day pursuit, how has your legal strategy changed, if at all?
So thank you for the question. I wanted to just first address what Luai said. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Perfectly.
I'm in total agreement with you that the root cause of Jew hatred is hate education. And I learned that firsthand when I spent in and out of Jenin and Ramallah and Tulkam and Nablus for 2 years, and I saw with my own eyes what I believe to be the greatest crime against humanity, which is the intentional, state-sponsored indoctrination and recruitment of innocent Muslim children towards violence and a violent ideology of jihad. And when they say globalize the intifada, what they mean is bringing that same style of hate education to our college campuses, to our K through 12 schools, and we see the results of that. And the unfortunate truth is those of us who've been on the media, in the counterterrorism community, in the moderate Muslim community, who have been speaking openly and publicly about the threat of theologically motivated radicalism, have been slandered, have been attacked violently, and have been sued. We've been called Islamophobic, we've been called racist, we've been called anti-Muslim, and in my personal case, if risking my life to expose human rights crimes against innocent Muslim children and women, because I did a whole thing also about female genital mutilation, if that's anti-Muslim, what then is pro-Muslim? And isn't that the bigotry of low expectations that people like Bret Stephens talks about all the time? And so to address your question, the truth is my strategy has not changed, but what has changed is the willingness of those in the Jewish community who have experienced discrimination to stand up for themselves, right? My biggest challenge is convincing that student who's been assaulted on campus, who's been spat on and called a dirty Zionist baby killer and excluded from participating sometimes in federally funded activities, to sign on as a plaintiff to a lawsuit. And what I say to that is very simple. There is nothing to fear for standing up for yourself. There is more to fear when you do nothing, because you guarantee that you will be continually abused. But when you sign on as a plaintiff with the Lawfare Project, you will be protected. Your rights will be protected by partners at over 37 of the major international law firms that we work with, and the school will fear retaliating against you. So my message is not so much we have to change the strategy. The strategy is old. The strategy is using the same civil rights laws, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the same civil rights laws that have been used to protect the rights and guarantee the equal protection of other minority communities. We have to learn from those strategies and use them. And it's amazing to me that we haven't done to this date. But what has changed is our willingness to stand up for ourselves and the importance of shedding fear in doing so.
Brooke, is there a line between protected free speech, unlawful harassment, intimidation when it comes to Israel or anti-Israel activities on campus? Where should the courts draw the line, and where do they currently?
Well, the problem is that the courts have drawn the line. The line is obvious. You learn this, Law School 101. You are free to be a bigot in this country. What you're not free to do is violate the civil rights of another because of your political views. The problem is that anti-Jewish discrimination has become politicized, right? And the more we respond to anti-Jewish discrimination with pro-Israel advocacy, with political arguments, the more we give them an affirmative defense to discriminate against us. So, for example, if I hate the government of China because of the way, hypothetically, because of the way they handled COVID, that doesn't give me an excuse to go to a local Chinese American student and discriminate and harass him or her. But if you're my client, Jonathan Carton at Columbia University, a Jew, it's perfectly okay to go up to him as he's walking across the quad, spit on him, and call him a dirty Zionist baby killer because you're just protesting Israel. And when we respond to anti-Jewish discrimination with arguments about Israel, we are politicizing what is really a civil rights issue. Ending Jew hatred in this country and the equal protection of Jews in the diaspora is not a political issue. It is not related to the so-called Israel-Palestinian conflict. That is just an excuse. It is a civil rights issue. And that is why we have to advocate for ourselves as a minority community, regardless of what's happening abroad. And that is why I'm so happy that the Department of Justice, for example, just filed a statement of interest in our lawsuit against CUNY, the City University of New York, explaining exactly that. When you trespass, when you assault, when you engage in the destruction of public property, you are not exercising your right to free speech. You are engaging in unlawful behavior. And no matter how much you hate Israel, that is not an affirmative defense for unlawful activity.
Leo, I'm going to jump to you, if that's all right. So you've criticized mainstream media for perpetuating narratives that you considered divisive and inaccurate. Can you give concrete examples where you believe the media misrepresented facts regarding law enforcement and race?
Thank you very much for that question. Let me be very clear. I listened to Brooke, 100% correct relating to filing lawsuits, taking action. But we were at a synagogue last week, and I want to address this very clearly. We are losing the information battle. The battle of making sure our response is immediate. The other side that lies and distorts the truth, like we were talking, Rabbi, about the New York Times article. We're losing. I was a former school teacher. I'll give us an F as far as responding rapidly with the truth. We're letting the other side characterize the issue. So we have to respond immediately. I have been on this earth for a very long time. I've never seen anti-Semitism as bad as it is right now, except when I taught it as a history teacher, referring to the 1930s and 40s. We are fighting an uphill battle against the media, and I don't want to mention their names because I don't want to embarrass them. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post. They're beating us. So we have to respond immediately. Social media is our new weapon, in addition to the lawsuits. But I want to make one other point that is clear. I am so proud to be a non-Jewish member of this hate crime committee, and because I want the public to know this is just not your fight. This is the entire world's fight. This is an American issue, and people of all colors, all religions should be on board. So it's not just your fight. And one last point. As I said this earlier, people say, oh, you're doing a great job. No, I'm not. We have to work harder. This is a 24/7 commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the only job I have, and I love it. It's a responsibility that we have to take immediately and do more. You need to work harder. One final point. Again, this is not a political issue, but we have to use the time that we have right now to put up guardrails to make sure that the next administration, the following administration, make sure that protecting the rights of Jewish Americans and all Jews is a priority number one. We don't want to go back to any administration that turns their back on the Jewish community or use the Jewish community as a political strategy. This is a fundamental right that you're entitled to, that all Americans. I can't be free, I can't enjoy my religious freedom unless you enjoy yours. Thank you.
Let me just follow up with that real quick. So, what reforms, if any, do you believe would enhance public safety? I was just interviewed for the news outside in the lobby about the attack in Manchester, United Kingdom this morning. So, what changes would you like to see that would enhance public safety and civil rights, and where would you draw that line?
Well, that's, my task force and my chief of staff is out there and love to make sure we stay in contact. We have to educate. The federal government can do so much, but most of your problems are local. The local police department has to understand what anti-Semitism is so they can file the appropriate charges. The local prosecutors have to understand what anti-Semitism hate crimes are so they can prosecute. Ladies and gentlemen, I will submit to you the following facts. When I came in to this job 8 months ago, I found it offensive when I said, how many cases you have, hate crime cases you have in the pipeline to file? None. It wasn't a priority. And by the way, this is not an East Coast, West Coast problem. This is a problem that across the entire country, in Washington, in Oregon, in Idaho, we need a 50-state solution, an education of all local officials, prosecutors, mayors, to understand what anti-Semitism is, how to prosecute it, how to deter it from being rampant in their communities. And one last point, as a former school teacher, it's been mentioned already. The colleges have been hijacked, indoctrinated. As a former school teacher, we have to make sure K-12 has not been hijacked, the lesson plan, the curriculum. We got to make sure we're in there, making sure that's not being compromised with Jewish hate.
So, Leo, there were 2 episodes. One of them you're investigating. A group of Jewish kids on Santa Monica Pier were attacked, and the police stood down. At Adas Israel on Pico Boulevard, a group of Jews were intimidated and hassled, and supposedly the mayor told the police to stand down. How can actions be taken against local police forces that are not protecting innocent citizens if they're being given instructions to stand down?
Rabbi, that's an excellent question. This is where you have to be the eyes and ears to make sure if it's not being addressed on the local level. That's when the federal government, which has tremendous resources, and I can sit here and tell you that this administration is expanding the task force to make it an advisory task force. So there's Jewish stakeholders involved. I want to be specific about answering your question. You got to contact us. You got to get us informed if they're not doing their job on the local level. If the mayor or the prosecutors are saying they're going to stand down. Because you might recall with Columbia University, the kids get arrested, they were released the next day. We have to go after these cities and sue them for their failure to protect Jewish American students. But we need to know. We need ears in the ground, eyes in the ground. We need a 50-state solution as a deterrent mechanism.
Let's talk Harvard and UCLA. So the administration filed a huge lawsuit against Harvard University, correct? And recently it was settled, I think, for $500 million. And UCLA, which has been a hotbed, and Professor Pearl, Judea can speak to this, of anti-Semitism, the pro-Palestinian movements have crippled the freedom of Jewish students on that campus, and I'm not even going into faculty issues, but how can the government continue to put that pressure, that financial pressure on these institutions, because I think that's the only thing they understand.
I think you're right. Brooke hit on the head. You know, there's these tools that were used in the 50s and 60s to protect black American students. I recall federal officers in Little Rock in 1957 and Alabama in 1964. We cannot, and I said this before, these universities, these colleges receive Title VI funding from you, from me, taxpayers. And they have an obligation, a fundamental obligation, not to discriminate against all religious groups. And I would submit to you, it's not just taking their funds away, but having, in my opinion, monitoring, making sure that they comply. I'm getting ready to visit some of these schools that were, let's say, troublemakers when it came to not protecting Jewish American students. But we have to go after them. And I said earlier, I'm sitting here with a member of the UCLA staff. I went to UCLA as a lawyer, as a law student. I'm not proud of UCLA. I'm not proud of the ongoing incidents that occurred. The key here is we have to set those guardrails and monitor them, and like all these universities, to serve as a deterrent.
Why don't you take us to UCLA and your 50-year journey on faculty there, the changes you've seen over the years, and now we understand we have a new chancellor who is implementing new protocol and how that's rolling out. Obviously, it's a public institution, so the bureaucracy, I know, gets in the way of several changes he's looking at making. But from your eyes, please tell us what we should know and what we don't know.
What we should know is that going after violations, physical abuse, even say preventing from moving from one class to another is too late. We have a much earlier job. In my UCLA, in my campus, we don't have any anti-Semitism, non-existent. What we have is a totally different phenomenon. All our enemies love Jews. Right? Only the Zionists is what they are trying to intimidate, what they are trying to label, what they are trying to discriminate against. So we are missing the real point. The point is that we are dealing with the wrong enemy. It starts at the classes, the faculty. The faculty, and we have at least 3 or 4 departments which teach students the elementary of hating Israel. And this is where it propagates slowly to the entire school. I saw the chancellor on Monday, and he is ready to make Yom Kippurim, in the sense that Atonement Day. Because he is new to the campus, he can say, we have erred, we have done wrong, and I am willing to make up for that in the right way. But he needs the support of 2 elements. Number 1, the support of the faculty, and number 2, the support of the administration. I'm talking about the federal administration. He should be given the way from the faculty how to argue against anti-Zionism, even though the word Zionism has not been spelled out in any document of UCLA from Breshit until today. You can look up the entire statements, memos, and the word Zionism is being avoided like nuclear toxic. Okay? And this is our job, to press for the word Zionism. And this is your job, to look for as an indicator of repentance, as an indicator of correct doing will be for the word Zionist to be exposed and to be addressed head on. This is what we are looking for. But as far as the the new chancellor that we have, it's an opportunity for us to capitalize on that. We are talking here about a warm Zionist that cannot utter the word Zionism for the reason I stated, okay? We have to help that person, and he came out with a personal statement to Mr. Terrell. He would like to meet you any place, either in Los Angeles or in Washington, D.C., and explain to you, number one, what he has accomplished in the 8 months that he is in the chancellorship, and plus what he plans to do in the future.
Well, let me just say this, please, because I applaud this new chancellor, but I would have a hard problem ignoring what has transpired on that campus from October 7th, 2023, and what has gone on. And I question respectfully the motive, because I am not going to ignore those Jewish students who were punished, harassed, challenged not to be able to go to those classes. Everyone saw in this country what displayed or what happened at UCLA. And more galling, going back to what the rabbi said, charges against those individuals at UCLA who were harassing Jewish students, they were dropped. I'm not going to lie to you. I will never lie to this group. So I have no problem meeting this individual, this chancellor, but I'm not going to ignore what has happened on the UCLA campus.
Can we get our technical team to get a couple of microphones out into the audience so people will be able to ask questions in a few minutes, because I know many of you have questions. And I'd like to jump over to Roz.
Yeah, for sure.
Hello.
Roz, what is Stand With Us doing in the K through 12?
Yeah, this is before our kids apply to UCLA. That's going to be changed now for the better.
Okay,
So.
first of all, I'm a daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors, and I just want to say that because when Luai was talking about the hate training, it always reminds me of the Nazi youth, and people don't say that enough. The Nazi youth became the Nazis. They were trained just like that. So it's no surprise that these children grow up to hate and to engage in vicious attacks. And for you, Judea, I just want to underscore and give you credit for the term that you coined, which is Zionophobia, which is this man's word, Zionophobia. The identity of the Jewish people is the connection to the state of Israel. And to use other words besides a Zionist is just a fake. To pretend that we can take the Zionist out of most Jews is a fake. And so it's a lie. So we need to help everybody understand that Zionism, that Israel is part of Jewish identity. And that's what we do on college campuses. That's what we do in high schools. And by the way, make no mistake, the high school students that are not going to Jewish high schools, 100% of them are nearly 100% of them are suffering the same kind of anti-Semitism that we're hearing about and seeing on college campuses, which is why we also we started our legal department. Our legal department works on the civil rights that Brooke talks about with so much of her heart and soul and works so hard for. And we actually have over 500 attorneys across the country that are in our network of pro bono attorneys helping students on high schools and college campuses, and also our team. I'm supposed to tell you, because people are not aware of this, that in the community, not just the college campus, but in the community, there's an escalation of anti-Semitism. I want to just underscore that for you because people are not thinking about this on-the-job anti-Semitism, this discrimination that we're seeing now in the community. The numbers are now escalating in our experience, coming to the Stand With Us legal department almost in the same numbers as we used to have in the college campus. Those are still high, but imagine now we're getting cases of job discrimination and all these other ways that people are isolating, marginalizing Jews, not accepting them into college campuses and higher education. And we need to open our minds and eyes. And one last thing I want to tell you, everybody here, parents and grandparents, tell your kids this is a time for them to stand up and to find the people that welcome them. This is a time for them to organize, not a time for them to be alone. So what's very important, if you take this away with you, please communicate to your kids that this is that time not to be alone, to make sure they gather. It's time for us to gather. It feels good to be here with like-minded people. That's what we need to express to them right now. They must not be alone. And they are not alone, but they need to play that role as well.
I mean, the messaging is so key, and the term anti-Semitism, as we all know, has been thrown around more than we would all like to hear very recently, and I think Brooke's done a wonderful job of changing that classification where anti-Semitism may sum up Western democratic values and change the term a bit more appropriate, something more appropriate today, which is Jew hate, which she has put out there, which is fantastic. So the messaging is super important. So my question to Luai is, Israel's messaging has struggled a bit since October 7th, just a little bit. What advice would you have? What are they doing wrong? What would resonate with the global population that you have not seen come out of the state of Israel, or messaging that is pro-Israel?
I think fighting anti-Semitism is one of the biggest conundrums that I've ever seen, because it sometimes it feels like it does not matter what the information that people who hate Jews get, they will hate Jews anyway. And I do think, especially after having met and spoken with a lot of Jews and a lot of Jewish organizations and Israelis, it dawned upon me that Jewish people are just done with fighting anti-Semitism. There's this feeling of, well, they're going to hate us anyway, so might as well just exist and be ourselves, which is a very strong and beautiful Jewish thought that Jews should continue to do, to continue being innovators, people of science and technology and love. But I do think that when it comes to the Hasbara aspect of it, when it comes to defending Israel, there should be more of attacks rather than defense, because Israel is not like it's not just waiting for peace to happen. Israel is actively fighting the terrorists that are surrounding it on 7 different fronts. They're throwing missiles, ballistic missiles, right back at the Houthis, right back at Gaza, right back at Hezbollah. So there's this strong Israeli offense against terrorism. And I do find in the defending Israel and defending the Jewish community should also be offensive. No, of course the Jewish people have the right to their ancestral homeland. Muslims have 57 countries and Christians have 63 countries. Why should Jews not have one country? The lines of argument that the Jewish community should, in my humble opinion, should take should be more offensive and less, no, sorry, it's almost kind of like the Jewish community has been taught to be more excuses for existing, when in reality the Jewish community, as we see in the Middle East, is the gold mine of the Middle East. Israel right now, the country that they're trying to eradicate altogether, is publishing more academic and scientific research in the entire region than the rest of the Middle East combined. So the Jewish community and Israel are a hub of technology and future progressivism and human rights. And as thus, the Jewish community and the Israeli community should be proud of this, and they should not, be more defensive of themselves, but rather attack the terrorists who are trying to exterminate the only democracy in the Middle East.
You're 100% correct.
We have a microphone right over here, so if someone has a question, you can line up behind the microphone. The microphone's right here in front of me. So if you have a question, just line up, and please make it a pertinent, direct question. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Kopit. This is a question for whoever might want to answer it. I watch a fair amount of stuff on YouTube that regarding all the hatred and anti-Semitism and the ridiculosity that's going on in Britain, for one. And their police force actually walks up to people who are trying to be pro-Israel or other than pro-Palestinian, and they're telling them to stop talking, and they take them away so that they can't voice their opinions in front of these people because they're disturbing the peace. So I guess my question is I'm waiting for that to start happening here. Dearborn, Michigan, there's all kinds of places where these people are trying to globalize the Intifada, and that's happening. There's a group in Texas that are trying to form an Islamic town. Abbott, their governor, is making that illegal. He's made Sharia law against the law. He's passed a bill. So I don't know what I'm trying to ask.
We'll see who would like to handle that.
If you've got some
question.
comments on that, that'd be great.
Thank you.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is you're talking about the difference between what is the definition of free speech and when does it become dangerous and harasses others. And I think this dilemma has been our problem. It has been our problem. So when it crossed the line and continued to cross the line, is it free speech? Is it free speech when you put up a barricade and don't let people pass? I literally was pushed personally at UCLA, by the way. I was pushed by one of the guys holding up a barricade. He looked like a policeman, but he wasn't. He was anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and basically a bigot. And he pushed me backwards. And so when do we draw the line, and how is that line going to be drawn? And who's going to fix it first? And what are the new role models in our society going to be? Which campuses? NYU is doing a good job now. There were lawsuits against them, and now they're doing a better job. There were multiple lawsuits. Brooke has them, we have them, against universities across the country. And once they have to deal with this, and there's shame, they have to make changes. They have to. And they are. We see change. We do see change.
Please make the question directed to a specific person, if you can.
Okay. Well, this is a general one. It's hard. When I was younger, right after the 7-Day War, they had a big fundraising event at the Hollywood Bowl. And Barbra Streisand sung the Hatikva. And Frank Sinatra was there, and he was singing, and I could see his blue eyes even from then. And they raised millions. And I'm asking whoever, where's the entertainment industry? I mean, they're all signing in favor of Hamas and against Israel. And where are they these days? So that's my first thing, and another thing I want to say is that at UCLA, I have 2 degrees from UCLA, and I was appalled that they were allowed to have these encampments on campus. I mean, there's plenty of spaces if people want to give speeches. There's Jan Steps, there's plenty of places. If people want to give a major speech, and the administration just, where were they? I mean, I've just never seen it.
We've got the question. Anybody want to handle it?
I just have 2 more things. Can I just say 2?
No, we've given you 2. I'm sorry. We have to limit it because there's a long line behind you. Yes.
I'll take
Go
a
ahead.
stab quickly. So I just want to comment on what was said before about England as well. The problem in England, and also, I don't know if many of you heard, because I'm sure you're not checking your phones, there was a stabbing and a killing and a car ramming yesterday in Manchester, and 2 Jews who were observing Yom Kippur were murdered. And I think that it just, it goes to show this is not about Israel. This is about Jew hatred. And England has a really big problem because in England, they're arresting Jews for provoking the Islamists. They're not arresting the Islamists for breaking the law. and going on these pro-Hamas violent protests in the street. They're arresting the Jews for provoking it. And being Jewish is not a provocation to anything. So England and all of Europe has to wake up to the Islamist threat. And the reason why they haven't so far, or they've been too intimidated, is because of what I call the Islamophobia campaign that has targeted people, as I said, with lawsuits, with violence, with slander, if you speak out against radical Islam. And England is going down and Europe is going down, and it's not just about the Jews. And to your question as to where is Hollywood, I ask that right back. Where are the Jews in Hollywood? How are you allowing people to show up at these awards events with red hand pins? None of these people who wore a red hand pin should be able to work again. All of you agents, all of you producers, every single person who signed an anti-Jewish boycott are publicly admitting that they're going to engage in an illegal discriminatory boycott campaign. They should be boycotted from Hollywood, and yet I'm appalled. I'm appalled that I haven't heard from any of the major producers that not only are they just going to sign a letter telling people how very angry and appalled they are, but they're not going to act. If I showed up at a Grammy event with a noose around my neck as some sort of fashion statement advocating that I support the hanging of black people, I would be shunned. I would never be booked on live television again. And yet we tolerate this again because we're told to shut, still, be quiet, put our heads down, don't make any noise. When I filed my first lawsuit, it was the Jewish community. Major Jewish communal leaders came out against me telling me, how dare you? Who do you think you are? You're creating more anti-Semitism. You're silencing pro-Palestinian voices. You're giving the impression that we're all moneyed up and trying to silence free speech. I didn't listen to them, and I went ahead, and now you see, thank God, other organizations engaging in impact litigation. But the issue is, and what Leo said very well, it's local. Right? You may not be able to do anything about AOC or Rashida Tlaib, but you sure as hell can engage in grassroots mobilization and get together, join the End Jew Hatred movement. We will provide you with pro bono legal support. We will provide you with funding. We will provide you with a team of strategists, but you have to be willing in the Hollywood community to stand up and to do something, because fighting anti-Semitism is not about writing a check to Federation and trusting the CEOs to take care of it for you. Every single Jewish man and woman and student and doctor and bus driver has to stand up and do something themselves, and they need to be boycotted from Hollywood.
Brooke, there is a countervailing movement. I signed a petition, I think close to 2,000, Creative Community for Peace, because I was a consultant on a number of films, so tangentially industry related. But this is a large group that have signed a counter proposal. But it is despicable, and I think people in Hollywood are afraid of their shadow. They're afraid of being called Islamophobes.
On the positive side, the same question that you ask, where is the Hollywood, right? The people ask, where are the faculty at UCLA?
The faculty, yeah.
Yes, and let me tell you where the faculties are. Number one, there is a great disparity between the faculty and their sentiments and the people who are anointed to speak for the faculty. Okay? Right now, I can tell you that there is a new organization called Jewish Faculty Resilience Group that have rebelled against that image and against the inaction that the faculty has been guilty of all this year. And they are organizing and they are demanding a voice. Thank you.
Yes, next. Who's next? Next question.
Hi, I'm David Warbuff. I'll make sure it's a question so you can answer it. This is for the legal folks up there and for Leo. People like George Soros obviously are funding many of these activities. We can see it by the tents. You can see it by the organizations. Why has he not been shut down? And why is he not being sued by all you folks for all the damage that he's causing to these campuses? He personally is funding it. And I just keep on thinking, why wouldn't a lawyer group like this go way after this guy immediately? That's my question.
All right, question. Anyone who wants to take the George Soros question? Anybody?
Well,
Well, let me just mention this, and please chime in. I can tell you right now that this administration is going after following the money. Now, let's be clear. You notice all these planned, organized rallies. Everyone's wearing the same outfit. They have the same tents. And you might recall in Los Angeles, when the federal government was here, there was a truck that was delivering gas masks and materials for these, what they call professional protesters. To call this gentleman's question, this administration is trying to follow the money and see if these organizations are complicit in organizing this type of conduct on the streets, at the universities, because they will be held liable under a strategy, sort of like a RICO strategy, because they are basically financing this type. But I can assure you, as I sit here today, that the idea of where this money coming from, is it coming from source or another source, is being investigated. You have my word on that.
Next question. Next question.
Many things are being investigated. I just want to say, I just heard about the Department of Justice in New Jersey going after a group that was blocking Jews from getting into a synagogue. So good things are happening, really. And George Soros, he just needs to make a wrong move. A lot of this is free speech and the freedom to I mean, you know that he was a Holocaust survivor, right? George Soros, Holocaust survivor. He just needs to make a wrong move. He's been funding things, that's his right, unless it's funding terrorism directly, which, you know, he's probably being very careful, is my guess.
Ross, calling him a survivor is a very loose use of that term.
Holocaust survivor.
Well, he was from Hungary, but he was Jewish, so he was certainly targeted, but he and an older gentleman would go into the Jewish homes after the Nazi roundup, and they would take all of the precious silverware and jewelry that might have been left behind, and they would resell it. That's how he survived the war.
We should say that he was young. He was a small
15
kid.
years old, yeah.
He was young.
Okay.
I'll just
next
ask
question.
what we are looking at RICO. Oh.
At what point can the university say this is not free speech, and what can and should they do about it?
Let me be clear. It's all about this money. You know, these universities that did nothing, you might recall the fabulous Elise Stefanik congressional hearing where she had those universities up there. And by the way, you can't get a better congresswoman, future hopefully governor of New York, than Elise Stefanik. But the key here is that the discretion that these universities took, do they protect Jewish American students, or do they collect this money from outside sources, bring in these professors who teach Jewish hate? That is being halted now in this structure under this current administration. I can assure you of that. The key here is you take away their funding and you sue them. And that's what we're doing. Because you can replace someone, but if you're not committed to eliminating anti-Semitism, you just got a revolving door. So I question, oh, we got rid of this bad guy. Are you certain that you got the right person in the job? I'm going to brag a little bit. I've had battles with people in the administration because I will not sell out. I will not compromise. You cannot compromise on civil rights. You cannot compromise on religious freedom and religious liberty. And so therefore, I'm a hard-nosed, and I'm proud of that, because that is what I'm fighting for, to make sure Jewish Americans and all Jews have the same rights afforded to all Americans. Period, stop.
Thank you.
Next question, yes.
One comment, one question. It took about 60 years of well-placed Arab money in the universities to build what they built. So it's going to take a while. It's not going to happen overnight. And the question that I have is for anyone on the stage to comment on is, anti-Semitism now is strongest coming now from both the far left and the far right. How do you deal with that?
I wanted to talk a bit about the funding issues that you just asked about as well. Nobody's mentioned Qatar on this stage, and everybody's too afraid to talk about Qatar. I'm not afraid. We have a lawsuit against Carnegie Mellon University, which happens to be
the third largest recipient of funds from Qatar. Qatar is the #1 state sponsor of Hamas. Qatar hosts Hamas. They could host other terrorist organizations. If Qatar wanted the hostages to be released today, they could do it. Look how they did it with Aidan Alexander. And for them to go masquerading around like they're some sort of hostage negotiators is BS. Qatar has spent over $1 billion a year for at least the past 15 years, funding not just American college campuses, but K through 12. And our colleague Charles Small, who runs ISCOP, has done an incredible study showing that there is a direct correlation between funding from Qatar, particularly undocumented funding that these universities are legally obligated to report, but unfortunately, and I know that Leo is going to change this, the feds are not enforcing the law. They're not enforcing the law against these schools. They're not enforcing the Foreign Agents Registration Act. How is it that Al Jazeera is running around unregistered as foreign agents when they're funded by Qatar, they accept strategic direction and control from a foreign government. They are foreign agents in this country, and yet we are not enforcing the law. And you are absolutely correct. We are way behind. We are 15 to 20 years way behind. But what we need to do is support lawsuits like mine, lawsuits like Stand With Us's lawsuits that get at the funding, the source, the motivation, the cause of the rise in not just anti-Semitism, but anti-Americanism, because this is a national security threat of the highest order.
Luai.
May I just answer the question regarding right and left? The far right and the far left match. They can get married now. What we have to do is we need to encourage people in their camps that are not anti-Semitic to call them out. So people on the left should call out the far left. People on the right should call out the far right. Very, very important, and not happening as much as we need it to be happening. Never shy still, never. We need to speak up, we need to stand up.
Luai.
I'll just mention Qatar's older siblings, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, because they're very important in this context of radicalization and anti-Semitism in the Middle East. While Qatar is the #1 state funder of terrorism in the world, we see a good sign in the region, and that is that the UAE and Saudi Arabia, while they are regimes that I am not personally a big fan of, we see that they are making radical changes in their societies that the rest of the Middle East should be making. I was in Dubai last summer and I was told this, and I was shocked to the core to learn that in mosques, the same mosques that I studied anti-Semitism in Yemen, and in the UAE, they monitor the mosques, every single mosque in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. If an imam gets on stage and says, Israel should not exist, or the Jewish people are whatever, or women should not, whatever they say that it could be slightly misogynistic or anti-Semitic or extremist, the imam gets put in jail. In fact, the UAE and Saudi Arabia send out scripts to their imams to read to their students because they are done with terrorism. They see that Saudi Arabia and the UAE, now that they have took a left turn and they're cozying up to the West and they're trying to open up to the future and bring tourists and female tourists into their countries, the more that they're expanding to the future, the more that they're realizing that Islamic terrorism is not the answer. And the UAE foreign minister goes out on TV and says, we need to kill Islamic extremism and we need to kill Islamic radicalism because it's destroying us. Meanwhile, I'm sat in Sweden and my Prime Minister of Sweden goes out and says we can never criticize religious extremism because we have to protect our Muslims' feelings. So you see that in the Middle East, you have countries that are moving forward and they're getting rid of Islamic extremism, while in the West we have idiotic and naive politicians who don't know what they're doing, sadly.
Next question, yes, Joyce.
The Jew hatred in Islam is not part of extremism, it's part of the religion. And just as Judaism defines itself in opposition to paganism, Islam and Christianity define themselves in opposition to Judaism. And I think we need to face it. It's just a fact. We killed the prophet and we killed God. And I was reminded of killing God ever since I was a little girl. So, but the reason I'm up here now is because I saw anti-Semitism at the Charlie Kirk Memorial. I saw it from the preacher, McCoy, who basically said, Charlie had to choose between a God of justice and a God of mercy. He used the word grace. But as far as the God of justice, he meant a vengeful God. And he was talking about us because they believe that we worship a vengeful God. And then later on, Tucker Carlson, as most of you probably heard, what he said, that he didn't say it directly, but he meant, and everybody understood, that the Jews killed Charlie just like they killed Jesus. So no one rebuked him, and the audience of hundreds of thousands of people applauded wildly. They cheered. So this is a grassroots thing. That's what I'm seeing. This is deeply embedded in people's DNA. Right. And so I don't know who to ask.
I'm just going to say it's not black and white. And there are people in the camps that will push out that form of extremism, or they will not survive. They will not be able to survive with that kind of a voice going after Jews. So, you know, if they want to survive, if they want to be inclusive, if they want to really be a movement.
You said yourself that this is in the community. This is grassroots now.
That's true.
And
That's
is
another
surviving.
Issue. Yeah.
Well, I think to Joyce's point, and we have to wake up and realize this isn't about peace agreements and handshakes and land deals. This is theological. And that's the point that Joyce is making. And we can't deal with this necessarily on the political level. And obviously, I support Trump's 21-point plan. But we're not eradicating Hamas. We have to eradicate a version of radical Islam. And there are debates whether or not this is Islam or it's radical Islam. Is it moderate Muslims that we should befriend, or are, you know, there are people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali who've abandoned her faith, but it's not for us so much to debate. This is an internal issue for the Muslim community, and it goes to show also, you know, we keep, you know, harping on this notion that it's our job to solve peace in the Middle East. It's our job. It's not the job of the Israelis to create a so-called Palestinian Islamic State. It's the job of the Gazans to fix their own problems. It's the job of the Muslims who live in Judea, Samaria. But it is our job to speak accurately and truthfully and not to contribute to the mumble jumble of the language. You know, the more we keep saying falsities like two-state solution, right? Creating another Islamist state in a sea of failed Islamic dictatorships is not a solution to anything. The more we use the term occupation, delegitimizing the fact that Jews are from Judea. If we are not from Judea, I don't know where we're from. It's not the West Bank, it's Judea, Samaria. There are not settlers. There are not settlements, there are Jewish homes, Jewish people, Jewish businesses. So we internally also have to start using the right language and understand that this is a theological battle that cannot be solved by politicians papering deals.
A couple more questions, and then we have the film October 8, which is coming on, so we have to allow for time.
So we'll go into a lightning round just after
A short note
Judea.
about Qatar. I have no question that Qatar is responsible for the climate in a university like UCLA. I could not imagine any other reasons why good faculty, thinking faculty, will take positions like they have, and why Hamas will dig these intellectual tunnels under the ground of UCLA. But I'd like you to be aware of how smart the Qatarians are. They're not coming to us with preaching anti-Jewish or the Islamic extremism or telling us you killed our prophet. No, by the time they come to UCLA, they are Western with nice ties, and all they are doing is they're sending the good students from Muslim majority countries, nicely, benevolently, with no preaching background, and the university accept them with glee because they pay tuition. Nothing bad, just benevolent tuition. Okay? This is the way of penetrating the mind of the students and the professors and administration in UCLA, benignly.
I'll just add one more thing to that, is that the Islamists who are waging this holy war that has been ongoing for over 1,400 years, one of the ways that they're infusing their anti-Semitism and infusing Islamic extremism in Europe and in the US, but more so in the Europe, is they're open about it. If you look at the Muslim Brotherhood's charter, they say it very explicitly. We are going to change Europe and the West into a Muslim caliphate, and we're going to do it through 3 ways. Number 1 is through our mother's tummies, is through giving birth. And number 2 is through migration. And number 3, it's through democracy. They use democracy as a front where they go and say, we believe in equality, we believe in religious freedoms, we believe in all of these things. And then they hide the truth behind their ideology, which is basically, we need to make sure that every single body in the world becomes a Muslim, because Islam is not just the 3rd religion, it is the final religion, and it needs to become whole again, which is a very fascist idea that needs to be eradicated. And like I said earlier, Saudi Arabia and the UAE exist, and they have finally found out this vitriolic cancer of Islamic extremism is destroying the region.
And they have prescribed the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, the UAE, and yet the Muslim Brotherhood operates openly within the United States and all of its front organizations, and they're engaging in the stealth jihad. And then also the 4th column is Western appeasement. And you see this when Macron declared that France will recognize a Palestinian state, all of the Islamist mobs went on the streets of France, and what did they chant? Death to Macron, death to France, because that is appeasement of terror. And the more that the Europeans think that they can throw Jews under the bus and that will appease this Islamist wave and takeover, the more that they dig their own grave.
Let's go very quick with a 30-second lightning round so you can get your questions in.
Hi, I'm a video journalist. I've been publishing issues on Islamic anti-Semitism for the past 20 years and covered most of the relevant events in this city, including the UCLA, USC, and Adas Torah attacks. I've been attacked myself covering the La Raza for Gaza to shut down the Christmas shopping at the Beverly Center. And it's very difficult to rise above this taboo against challenging not just the notion of Islamic supremacism, but the infiltration through the institutions. And I'm directing my question to Leo 2.0, please.
You know, I think one of the biggest problems that we have, and we got to vote.
Can you hold the microphone loud?
Yeah. Can you? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm hearing every discussion, every point here. I'm listening. I sort of have this role as a member of the federal government and also as a civil rights attorney. And we're looking at all these things that are going on. Your comments about Saudi Arabia and what's going on in France, what's going on in this country. Folks, we got to get the right people in office. We got to get the right people in office. We got to get the right people in these colleges and these professors. So how do we do that? We vote, and we vote in massive numbers, and we use our power, our influence. Because I'm telling you, just close your eyes and think if the other person had won the election. Just close your eyes and think. And this is not a partisan issue, but this particular administration is gun-ho on your concerns, and still we don't feel like we're doing enough. So how do we accomplish our goals that we're articulating? We get the right people in office. That's it.
Is that it?
That's it. That's my answer.
Okay. Hey, what about getting a Muslim Brotherhood put onto a list?
One second. I don't know if you're aware of this at this point. Again, I have to be limited to what I can say. This administration is targeting where this money's coming from, but it's a process. It is a process. Antifa, the Muslim Brotherhood, all these organizations are being targeted. We mentioned George Soros. We're looking at the source of the money. I counter that statement that you just articulated, and everything that I agree with, everything up here from my brothers and sisters. What about 2028? Who's going to carry this mantle? Who's going to carry these concerns that we're articulating? We got to vote. I'll go back to the same part. We got to vote.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, Leo, I have another simple practical question for you, and that is, can UCLA be made a major front in the war against anti-Semitism? And I'll give you a few reasons why. The most powerful pro-Israel, pro-Jewish organization in America, stand with us right over here, is headquartered in LA. Number two, we have this new Julio Frank as the chancellor. I think he's a softie. Thank God you're skeptical about him. Thank God. He's probably too soft to do anything, but at least he may try a little bit. Number three, Judea Pearl mentioned this incredible, unprecedented organization at UCLA of 300 faculty and staff. There's nothing like it, as far as I know, in the country, fighting anti-Semitism with a very courageous leader, Kira Stein. Those three reasons make UCLA, I hope, a real front in this war.
I'm never going to lie to you. I'm just going to be a truth teller. Now, I go to UCLA right now, enrolled. I'm not going to be confronted and say, you can't come here because you're black, or I'm not going to be denied the right to go to my classes. Pretty basic, right? Why is it so? We don't need all these organizations and all these things that we have to do. The right for Jewish Americans to walk on campus like I can is fundamental. It's like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. It's being denied. Why? Because, as we talked about it before, we got a failure of local leadership. They're turning their back on the Jewish American students, family members. We talked earlier about the Jewish tax. We have the wrong people in the wrong positions. How do we get rid of them? That's the question. And it goes back to what I said 20 seconds ago. We got to get the right people in those positions. I don't know who spoke last year representing the task force, but I think you could tell. I know what I need to do. I'm not going to compromise. And we have to get more Leo Terrells, more individuals who will make sure everyone is treated the same. We are fortunate to have an administration that is taking this issue place this issue as priority number one. What happens in 2028, folks? It goes back to the same thing. Who's going to be there? 2028.
I can say the same thing about this today.
I'd like to ask Andre, because he hasn't had a chance to speak very much. Andre, tell us how your art has helped you in this process of post-traumatic stress from being captured.
It's absolutely another theme, yes, and sorry for being silent for the last 30 minutes. Maybe I'll talk about it like during my speech, and like I see a lot of people, they just want to talk about politics, and I'm not so aware about US politics, honestly. I just moved here.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. We're showing a film now called October 8th. I'd like to ask Wendy Sachs to come up. Let's lower the screen, and let's give a nice warm thank you to this amazing panel. And I want to thank my co-moderator here, Fred Bernstein, who did a great job. And this is going to be, by the way, an opportunity for you, because if you didn't get to ask your question, all of these panelists are going to come into the audience now, so you can come up and ask them individually if there's a question you want to ask them. So take the opportunity to do that, and thank them again, everybody, for a fantastic and informative session.